Hey, howdy folks. It's certainly been a while, and I know I'm a little bit late to the party again on this one, but of course, better late than never. As of August 22nd, 2024, HESoft version 6.34 is out. You can go to this page, linked in the description, and you can download it and check out the release notes. We will definitely be doing that in a minute. So that said, this is just a quick PSA that I do with the new versions of HESoft when they come out. By the way, it's a perfect opportunity for me to say that I'm not affiliated with NASA, the GSFC, the HESARC, or any of the missions mentioned in this. I'm just a third-party analyst. I use HESoft, and I access a lot of data over at the HESARC for my own research purposes and things like that. And the whole reason why I just do these videos is just to kind of have a little bit of a discussion about HESoft and new versions of HESoft, especially for the newer individuals to the high energy astronomy and astrophysics space, because I know that when I first started out, I had a whole bunch of questions on it, and really didn't have a whole lot of guidance on whether I needed to upgrade to a new version of HESoft, like why was there a new version of HESoft, or really anything regarding that. So this is really just meant to be a resource for those of you who are new to this. That said, while these guides for installing HESoft on Mac or also on Linux are great, and these are definitely new and definitely upgraded from before, I have two video guides on installing HESoft, but either one of those guides will help you install HESoft on a Debian-based system or a Debian-based Linux system. The more recent one was with HESoft version 6.28, and pretty much all those steps are still relevant to this process, at least from what I can see looking through the instructions here. So check those out. I will also reference them in the description, where you can find all the other links and things like that. But now what I want to do is I want to go through the release notes with all of you, like I usually do, just to kind of give you a better understanding of what's going on and what's new with HESoft version 6.34, and who's going to probably be the most affected by the changes and things with HESoft version 6.34. Of course, I will always recommend that everybody always upgrade to the latest version of HESoft. I would highly recommend that you build from source code and build and install from source code, and also select all of the different desired packages. And that's just because, from my experience, you never really know when you're going to start working with another mission's data, and it's a hell of a lot easier just to have all of that stuff there with you. I know it's quite large. I think it's like almost 15 gigs at this point in time. But I'll always recommend that people upgrade to the latest version of HESoft. There's going to be a bunch of bug fixes and changes and things like that, as you'll see when we go through the release notes, for even older missions or retired missions even. Also do note that you can install HESoft with Docker. There's this again great guide right here for installing HESoft with Docker. For those of you who are nicer users, and maybe not even specifically nicer users, but I've done a video on installing HESoft with Docker before. I'll probably have to update the Docker file that I have for HESoft, because there's a couple of different more like custom changes that I've made to it. But with that said, let's take a look at some of these release notes here. Okay, so now let's take a look at the release notes, and I'll go through some of these really quickly. You can see right here, right up at the top, August 22nd, 2024, so I'm like 3 weeks late. Yes, I recognize I'm a little late, but again, better late than never. And there's specific changes to Chrism, XP Nicer, NuStar, Swift. And that's one of the points that I've always kind of tried to hammer home with these PSAs, is that if you're working with a newer mission, so I'm looking at you Chrism folks and XP folks, in particular, there's always going to be a lot of changes to the active missions, and more particularly the newer missions. And so just to kind of highlight that, let's start off with Nicer, because that's what I do. I wouldn't say most of my work with. I pretty much do most of my work with Nicer and RxTE data. So RxTE is, of course, legacy data. There's not any new data coming out. There's not major changes to the software. Although, if we scroll down here, You can see there are some updates and changes to the XTE software, but particularly with Nicer, it just says, right away, right off the bat, this is particularly a bug fix and usability fix update. No major new functionality is provided in this release. And so that's really reassuring Nicer analysts. So I mean, for me, it's not really a major requirement that I upgrade to a new version of HESoft, but it is, it's good to take advantage of those bug fixes and changes and things like that. But kind of just to highlight that point, on one of the older videos I've done on ARF and RMF files for spectrum analysis with Nicer data, there was, I remember once a point in time where we didn't have the Nicer ARF and Nicer RMF tools, nor did we have the Nicer L3 pipelines to more easily produce those. And I recently had one of you comment on that video and said, hey, do I need an RMF and an ARF to do, or no, not an ARF and RMF. It was either that or if you could do spectrum analysis without a background file. And the short answer is, I mean, yeah, you can, but you should probably use, either 3C50 model or Scorpion to model the background. And I mentioned that, at the time when I made that video, we didn't necessarily have those models. I remember at least a point in time when those models were third party, and I even remember a time when the ARF and RMF files, being able to generate those was a really big deal because it was a new tool added into NicerDis that was really, really useful. And so, I remember doing spectrum analysis with Nicer data, and I had just emailed around to a bunch of different people. I don't even remember who exactly I got it from, but I just got a generic, Nicer RMF file just so that I could have, the spectrum that I was using XSelect to extract out, from the Nicer data, to work with XSpec, and that's what I was using. So, and that was really early days with the Nicer mission. That was kind of right when I got started, about 2018. I kind of got started with working with Nicer data, about a year into when the mission started, because it launched I think sometime in June 2017 or something like that. So I just to kind of point that out, that with the newer missions and the active missions, there's going to be a lot of crazy changes, especially in the case of Nicer. It was a big deal to be able to generate your own RMF and ARF files, and it was also another big deal once the 3C50 model and the Scorpion models were added in to allow it to for a background when doing spectrum analysis. So from everything that I can see right here, most of the changes are actually going to come to Ixby, and that's because I think Chrism is just still too early on in its life cycle. There are some changes to Chrism, and we'll kind of get to that, but you can see here with Ixby, version 1.9 of their Python tools is here. And so I'll allow all of you to read through this if you are Ixby users. I don't have a whole lot of experience working with Ixby. I've really just kind of tinkered with some of the data at this point, because I just haven't had the time necessarily to go through and work with a lot of Ixby data. So Ixby analysts, you know who you are, but this is just kind of a PSA to say, hey, you should be using HESoft version 6.34, definitely, because there's significant changes to that. As you can see here with Chrism, there's revisions and there are bug fixes and things like that. This is build 8 actually, and so it doesn't look like there's anything too crazy new with Chrism in particular. Chrism, of course, being the newest mission of the bunch. But especially if you are a Chrism user, I would start to look out at these releases, because like I said, it's the active missions and especially the newer active missions where it's likely that there's going to be significant changes. Now, Newstar in particular is one that I wanted to point out with NewStarDis version 2.1.4, because there is a preparatory software update, as you can read through right here, because of a potential for future failure with Newstar's metrology, geez, I can't talk, lasers used to reconstruct the masked motions with this. And so this was a paper actually written back in 2022, February of 2022, highlighting this potential issue. I won't show you anything past this. You can go download this paper for yourself, of course. I will leave a link to that paper in the description. But Newstar is been in operation for I think about over a decade now. I think it's coming up on 12 years actually. I'm not entirely sure. I think it was somewhere in 2012 if I'm recalling correctly. But when it started. If you're a Neustar analyst, I don't work a lot with Neustar anymore. There was a point in time when I once did, but I still do dip into Neustar data from time to time. And, at some point in the future, if there are those issues with the Neustar mission and Neustar data, that software is already going to be in there. And so, again, this is a really important reason as to why, I will always recommend that people upgrade to a newer version of HESoft so they can take advantage of the bug fixes and the changes, even for older legacy stuff like I talked about with XTE, and I showed you with XTE. You can also see quite a lot has changed here with XSpec, as there always are, a lot of changes with XSpec, a bunch of new models and things like that. There's changes to a bunch of models. I know that actually quite a lot of you that do watch these videos do watch them generally because of something related to XSpec. I know XSpec is a really popular bit of software, for the models that are part of it. And so, especially if you're using XSpec or something, doing anything like that for spectrum analysis, you really should, again, be upgrading. And that's kind of the, what I'm hopefully hitting home with all of you is that, no matter what type of analyst you are, you really probably should upgrade to the latest version when they do come out, because you never know what bug fixes or changes are going to be there. And so unless you have like a very specific reason for sticking with an older version of HESoft, I again would really strongly recommend that you upgrade to the latest version. And especially if you're a student and you're someone who's new, just pay attention to what data you're working with. And like in the case of RxTE, okay, maybe upgrading from HESoft version 6.33 to 6.34 isn't going to be, too drastic or too crazy in what changes. You could probably get away with sticking with, still just using HESoft version 6.33, but some of those little bug fixes and changes aren't going to be there. And personally, I'd rather just have the peace of mind of knowing it's there. I mean, even if we scroll up here, you can see there's a ton, that has been added. Added support for Chrism with Xselect. With FV even, FitzViewer, they removed the Hera connection because, Hera has ceased. If you're doing any of this high energy astronomy or astrophysics type of stuff, that would be my personal recommendation. Again, I'm not affiliated with NASA, the GSFC, the HESARC, or any of the the missions that I've mentioned. I'm just an independent third-party analyst, and the whole point of me just doing these is really just to kind of use whatever little experience I have, because believe me, I mean, I've been doing this. HESoft version 6.25 was the first version I remember installing, and when I had to upgrade to HESoft version 6.26, it took me, I had no idea what I was doing, and I think it was just, it would have been useful to have a little bit of guidance, or at least somebody else's opinion who maybe had a little bit more experience with some of this type of stuff, to kind of, figure out, what I had to do. And so, yes, that's really why I'm doing it. So hopefully if you got some bit of use out of this, even if it's just one of you, this video has served its purpose. I know these videos don't generally do very well, but I'm not really doing these videos, because I want them to do well. It's just a way for me to, try to help out as best as I can. That said, I know I haven't uploaded in a little while, and this being an astronomy and astrophysics video for those who have made it this far, there will be a video that I've been working on for a little while now that will come out shortly after this one does, on the topic of doing pulsar timing work with NICER and XTE. So stick around for those. But otherwise, thank you all very much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, don't hesitate to let me know. Again, look in the description for references to any of the stuff that I've pointed out and kind of talked about here. But this is just, a friendly, quick, not too quick, but hopefully quick enough PSA that HESoft version 6.34 is out now, and you should definitely upgrade to it if you have not done so already. All right, thanks, guys.